Hi folks, it's the FPL General here, recording my first podcast of 2019. I'm recording on Tuesday the 8th of January, so I'm recording during the Spurs Chelsea game in the EFL Cup. Both teams have fielded strong lineups tonight, so hopefully there'll be no major injury news coming out of that one when I finish recording this. If you're listening to this podcast for the first time, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at FPL General. So in this podcast, I'm going to mainly look ahead to game week 22, which is coming up this weekend. I'm going to briefly talk about my festive period because I don't want to dwell on it too much because it wasn't a very good one. Take a few questions from Twitter. Talk about a few players on my watch list, the players I'm most interested in bringing in this week. Talk about captaincy and some thoughts on what my plans are for transfers this week as well. So it's good to dust the microphone off and get recording again after a couple of weeks break. Had a nice time back in Ireland for Christmas and New Year. Didn't watch a lot of football when I was at home. I caught a couple of matches of the days. That was about the height of it. I caught a couple of games in game week 18, but after that I was really just catching highlights wherever I could. So the eye test pods will return in game week 22 this weekend as well. So I'll do as many as I can of those going forward for the next couple of weeks. So any game I watch 90 minutes of, I'll fire out an eye test podcast right after the games as well. So no shout outs, no 59-minute shout outs this week. I haven't been, as I say, I haven't watched a lot of games over Christmas, so I haven't been keeping track of which players have been substituted in the dreaded 59th minute. So the shout outs will be back next week, so I'll keep an eye this weekend to see if anyone's getting hauled off early. A quick review first of all of my festive period. So the last time I did a podcast was ahead of game week 18. So we've had 4 game weeks since then. 4 game weeks where I've had 3 out of 4 red arrows. So when I was talking last time, I was around 136k, and over Christmas I've slipped about 100,000 places. So I'm ranked at 245k now. I mean, it's not awful, it's not where I want to be, but there is plenty of time to claw things back. So 17 game weeks to go. I'm going to remain positive and keep fighting, and hopefully my luck will turn in the coming weeks and months. I go into every season with a goal of top 10k. It's going to be pretty difficult to get there now from my rank at this point. So if I can get to top 50k by game week 38, I'll be pretty happy. If you offered me that now, I would take it. So looking forward to the challenge, and looking forward to enjoying the second half of the season now. So as most of you will know, before I went to the airport on, I think it was Friday the 21st of December, Wolves were playing Liverpool that night, and I sold Mo Salah. I sold Mo Salah to get in Sané and Sterling. So the Man City midfielders had been hurting me all season, and I felt the time was right to ship Salah for a few weeks and bring in the City lads. And just my luck, the way my season's been going, Man City go and lose 2 games as soon as I bring in Sterling and Sané. So that turned out to be a disaster of a transfer. We know what Salah did to me over Christmas. 3 12-pointers really killed me over the festive period. And obviously Sterling and Sané did very little for me. I rage transferred Sterling out for Pogba game week 20. So I managed to get Pogba's 18-point haul, which wasn't too bad. Held on to Sané, and thankfully he got something in the Liverpool game. But apart from that, that was a very punishing couple of transfers before Christmas. So this week I'm looking to get Mo back in. It's going to take a bit of surgery. I'll talk about that towards the end of the podcast. I've got 2 free transfers, probably going to take a -4. But as I say, I'll talk about that, what my plans are towards the end of the pod. Hazard captain fail last week was pretty frustrating as well. I did captain Hazard, I think it was game week 19 for his 15-point haul. So I got that one, but very frustrating home to Southampton for him to blank last week. And I just feel now, I don't really have much confidence in captaining Hazard anymore. So that begs the question, is he worth keeping if I'm not confident to captain him? But again, talk about that when it comes to transfers. Moving on now to my watch list. So usually what I do in this part of the podcast is talk about a few players I've added to the watch list and a few that I've removed. But what I'm going to do for this episode is just talk about a few of the players on my watch list who I'm most interested in at the moment. And all of these guys are in my transfer thoughts in the short term. So defenders, first of all, Trent Alexander-Arnold is my number one priority when it comes to defenders that I want. I've already got Robertson, and I want to double up on the Liverpool defence going forward. You know, they are the best defence in the league this season. They've got a great run of fixtures ahead. They've got Brighton, Crystal Palace, Leicester, West Ham and Bournemouth in the next 5. So I want to double up on Liverpool defence, hopefully for the rest of the season, with Alexander-Arnold and Robertson. So he's in my thoughts this week. Another defender who has impressed me this season, and you know, his stats are good, and he's backing it up with FPL points as well, is Ricardo Pereira at Leicester. Now we're starting to get some information about blank game weeks and double game weeks. Now I haven't looked at it too much myself yet, which is why I'm not going to talk about it too much in this podcast, but I will in future podcasts. But one thing that has emerged is that Leicester are a team who I don't think they're going to have a blank at all this season. So I'm eyeing up Pereira from game week 27 onwards. They've got a very good fixture run as well from game week 27 onwards, Leicester. So Pereira is someone I've kind of earmarked for that period from maybe game week 27, possibly till the end of the season, as a defender who offers a big attacking threat. Just looking at Leicester's fixtures here, they do have a pretty tough run in a couple of weeks' time. They've got Liverpool, Man United and Tottenham all back to back, game week 24, 25 and 26. So I'm happy enough to wait on Leicester assets until after that. But Pereira is someone, he's high on my watch list alongside TAA. I'm going to talk about a couple of midfielders now. I'm going to throw one in here. Now, it's not someone I'm looking to bring in, but Jason Puncheon, he moved to Huddersfield in the last couple of weeks, and he's only 4.2 million. Now, I'm not interested because I'm moving towards a power 5 in midfield, so I no longer want a budget 5th midfielder. But anybody who plays, you know, a 3-4-3 formation and uses, you know, 4.5 million or thereabouts midfielder, Puncheon is definitely an option now to save some cash. You know, if you've got someone around 4.5, 4.6 as your 5th midfielder, Puncheon can be used to free up 0.3 or 0.4, which, you know, Puncheon is basically, he can be a make weight now for improving things elsewhere in your side. So he's on my watch list, but again, it's mainly just because of his price. I don't really expect him to, you know, get a lot of FPL points at Huddersfield. They look like they're probably going to get relegated this season. But again, he's just a good option as a make weight for other transfers. So I just wanted to mention him. 2 midfielders I'm probably most interested in on my watch list. Salah's on my watch list, obviously, but I'm not going to talk about him because, you know, he's my number one priority to bring in this week. So he explains himself. He doesn't need any explanation. But 2 other midfielders who I'm interested in are Christian Eriksen at Spurs. He's owned by just 6.2% at the moment. He's got 4 goals in his last 5 games. Spurs play Man United this weekend, but then they've got a very nice run. They have Fulham, Watford, Newcastle and Leicester then. So Spurs assets look good. And, you know, Spurs assets could even do well against United. United haven't been defending very well this season. So a lot of people got on Heung-min Son and did very well. That's a boat I missed this season. You know, I considered bringing him in at one point, but rotation scared me, and obviously the Asian Cup as well was a factor. So well done to those who did get Son in, but obviously he's going to leave now after the Man United game. So Eriksen is definitely one to consider while Son is gone. Maybe for those who don't have Harry Kane or can't afford Harry Kane, Eriksen's definitely one to consider from Spurs for the upcoming game weeks. Another midfielder, I find it hard to believe that he's only owned by around 10% of managers, given what he's done this season. Raheem Sterling at Man City. Now, obviously I've had my troubles with him. I brought him in game week 18 and 19 for, I think it was back-to-back 2-pointers, and then I swiftly got rid of him for Paul Pogba. But Sterling's on my mind again now, even though it's not that long ago since I sold him. I expect City to turn things around now and come out all guns blazing over the next few weeks and blow a few teams away. So I've got Leroy Sané, and I'm quite happy to hold on to Sané. Again, he's around 10% ownership as well, so it's nice to have players, these premium assets who have got low ownership, because if they do something, it's a big help rank wise then. So I've mentioned that Salah's my number one priority this week to bring him in, but it actually has crossed my mind to get Sterling in instead of Salah, and go double Man City again and just back Man City to fire over the next few weeks. But more than likely I'm going to avoid Sterling for the time being and just get Salah. And I just feel that Leroy Sané hopefully will be enough from the Man City midfield for the time being. But definitely anybody who can get to Raheem Sterling easily or who already owns him, there's absolutely no chance I'd be selling him. It's always tricky to captain a Man City player because of the rotation. You can never, we can't second guess what Pep's going to do, but I do think Sterling could have a big couple of weeks ahead. Moving on to, I'm going to mention two strikers on my watch list now who I'm interested in this week. I've got Harry Kane, I've got Jimenez, and I've got Danny Ings. Now Danny Ings is he's a headache. I had him earlier in the season, got injured, brought him back in, now he's injured again, so part of me wants to just cut ties with him. But then on the other hand, when he does come back from injury, he's got good fixtures and he's great value. When he plays, I expect him to do damage, so I'm probably going to end up just benching Danny Ings for a couple of weeks and hopefully that he can return pretty quickly for those fixtures. I'm just looking at Southampton's fixtures here. They've got Leicester and Everton next, which there's a good chance he'll miss both of those, but then it's Crystal Palace, Burnley and Cardiff, so holding on to him might be a good idea if you can afford to. Obviously, if it's a weak point in your team, I would probably just sell him and cut ties with him. These injury prone players are very frustrating. I'm going to talk about another injury prone player now who I'm thinking about bringing in. It's Marko Arnautovic, West Ham, 6.9 million. Scored a brace against Brighton at the weekend. Now Arnie has already burned me this season. He was part of my awful transfer in game week 8 where I sold Callum Wilson to get Arnautovic in. That was one of the biggest. That was probably the worst decision I've made all season. But I'm being drawn towards him again now, even though he is, he's always just a sneeze away from another injury. We've seen it in the FA Cup. Very odd. He was substituted. They said it was precautionary because he had, he felt his back at the start of the game. So it's always a worry with Arnautovic. Any given game, he can come off early and just get a one-pointer, but it's the potential for what he can do, if he does play 60, 70, 80 minutes, which draws me back to him. And another player on my watch list is Rashford. The main reason I'm drawn towards Arnie is because I'm priced out of Rashford with the 3 transfers I'm thinking about doing, which I'll talk about soon. I can't include Rashford in that because of his price, so I'm probably going to settle for Arnautovic this week for that reason. When it comes to strikers on my watch list, Rashford is the one I want most, but it's probably just for budget reasons I'm not going to be able to get him in this week. He's been very impressive under Solskjaer, posting great stats, getting on the score sheet, and the thing I like about Rashford most is he seems to have the confidence of the manager. He seems to have made the shirt his own, the central striking role at United. So when you can get the United striker for 7.3 million, it's a bit of a no-brainer. And United have great fixtures as well. After the Spurs game, they've got Brighton, Burnley, Leicester, Fulham. So I would expect Rashford to continue to do well over the next few weeks. So that's Rashford and Arnie are the two guys I'm most interested in if I decide to sell Harry Kane this week, which is a big question I'm asking myself. So going to take a few Twitter questions now, and then I'll talk about captaincy and transfers. The first question comes in from Alex Ball. When you're having a poor season and your rank is in freefall, how should we approach the second half? Should we make aggressive transfers or should we remain steady? So Alex is in a similar situation to myself, having a bit of a tough season. I think he's only 15 or 20 points behind me, so there's not much in it between myself and Alex. So we're in a similar situation. We have to ask ourselves, how do we attack the second half of the season. Do we continue with our usual approach, or do we take a few more chances? Do we look for a few more differentials than usual? Do we take more points hits and things like that? So obviously that's something I've been thinking about over Christmas. And the way I always look at it is I tend to stick to my usual strategy and just keep plugging away, and just kind of take it one game week at a time. I think if you go searching for differentials, you can make your struggles worse more often than not, trying to be too clever, or trying to chase too much. I think the main thing is to focus on, you have to continue making good, sound, logical transfer decisions, and not panicking, and not taking points hits just because you're down the rankings, and just trying to be too smart about things. So I'm probably going to just keep to my usual strategy, avoiding points hits wherever possible. Just focus on bringing in the players who I think are going to score the most points. I very rarely look at player ownership, so I'm not going to be, when it comes to making transfers, I'm not going to be going out of my way to find differentials for the second half of the season. Maybe more so when it comes to maybe the last 3 or 4 weeks of the season, but for now I'm just going to focus on bringing in the players who I think are going to get me the most points. Just going to keep it simple. And again, I always just kind of take it snail pace, one game week at a time. And something I try and do as well is I try not to look at my overall rank too often, to be honest. Number one, because it depresses me. But number two, I think you can get caught up in overall rank as well, and it can maybe cloud your judgment, and you can maybe try things you wouldn't usually do. But again, it's for me, it's slow and steady, and I'm just going to try and get the best rank I possibly can. Sticking to my tried and trusted strategy. It has been a very tough first half of the season, but hopefully, sticking to my strategy for the second half, that things will improve, and I can slow and steady rise the rankings week by week. So that's my answer to that. I'm just going to remain steady, Alex. Obviously, if a few differentials present themselves, and I think they're the best options for my transfers, I look at them, of course. But my approach is not going to change too much second half. Second question was from Javier Maron. Javier's asking, what are my thoughts on Marcos Alonso? So I have owned Alonso all season, and there's been once or twice where I've considered selling him, but I think this week could be the time for me to do so. Now, I would be more than happy to keep Alonso. He's got a great fixture this weekend against Newcastle at home, so I'd fancy Chelsea for a clean sheet, and Alonso there's always a chance of attacking returns for him, although he hasn't got many recently. Looking at the stats again this week for Alonso over the Christmas period, he's still posting great stats, especially for things like touches in the final third. He's streets ahead of any other defender. So the potential is always there for him to put it all together and bring in a 15-point haul. But so as I say, I would be more than happy to keep him, but the reason I'm probably going to sell him is to fund Salah. Sacrifices have to be made for us to get the big midfielders and the big strikers. So what I'm looking at this week is downgrading Alonso to Alexander-Arnold. So, I say downgrade, but it may not even be a downgrade, because Alexander-Arnold could well outscore Alonso between now and the end of the season, if he plays the majority of games for Liverpool, that is. So I don't really see it as a downgrade, that one. It's more of a sideways move, really, which saves a lot of cash. So if I do make the Alonso to Alexander-Arnold move, I fully expect Alonso to get his 15-pointer against Newcastle this week to punish me. But long term, I'd be just as happy owning Alexander-Arnold as I am Alonso, and it frees up a lot of cash. So that's the short answer. I'd be happy to keep him, but if he allows bigger transfers and more exciting transfers elsewhere, then there's no problem selling Alonso, I feel. Third question came in from Abel Grant, asking who's the best budget keeper now, and he gives three options here: Etheridge at Cardiff, Angus Gunn at Southampton, and Guaita at Crystal Palace. So I've got Fabianski. I got him in, I don't know, it was probably about 7 or 8 game weeks ago now, and he did very well for the first few game weeks, but he's kind of tailed off a little bit now. West Ham are just pretty awful defensively this season. So I am losing patience with Fabianski, but goalkeeper is always a pretty low priority for me when it comes to transfers. I'd only really ever change a goalkeeper maybe if I had 2 free transfers and I had nothing else I wanted to do, and just use that luxury to change goalkeeper then. So more than likely I'm going to hold on to Fabianski, and hopefully that things can improve for him. If it's not clean sheets, hopefully he can start racking up more saves and maybe throw in another penalty save or 2 as well. So looking at the options Abel has mentioned here, Etheridge, a lot of people are talking about Etheridge, but I don't really like him because he plays for Cardiff, and that's the long and short of it. He's saved 3 penalties this season, which that's if he didn't have those penalty saves, I don't think anybody would be talking about Etheridge. I think we can be blinded by that sometimes, and I'm just not really interested in a Cardiff goalkeeper at the moment. Moving on to Southampton, Angus Gunn I think he's played the last 2 games in place of McCarthy. Again, I wouldn't feel comfortable bringing Gunn in because we don't know 100% if he's going to be the number 1 at Southampton. I seen an article on Twitter last night. I don't know if it was from a very reliable source, but there was an article saying that Hasenhüttl was thinking about giving Fraser Forster a run out. So it could be a case that he's just trying out his 3 goalkeepers to decide which one he prefers. We could see Forster getting back in now for a game or 2, and then maybe he'll decide which goalkeeper he prefers out of the 3. So that would be enough to put me off, because I don't want to bring in a goalkeeper and then have to sell him again in a couple of weeks' time. So I think it's safer to hold off on Angus Gunn for the moment, especially if you don't have another goalkeeper who plays. So that brings me to the Palace keeper, Guita. Now, as I said, I haven't watched a lot of games over Christmas, but Guita seems to have made the number 1 jersey his own at Crystal Palace. He's a very nice price, 4.2 million. And Palace have been racking up a few clean sheets recently as well. I've had Wan-Bissaka sitting on my bench laughing at me most weeks, but I think Guita is the best out of these 3, and he's possibly becoming the best budget goalkeeper option for the second half of the season. But again, as I say, goalkeeper's low priority for me. I'm not looking to change anytime soon, but I will be keeping a close eye on Palace over the next couple of games, and if Guita keeps getting starts, I may well make a move that direction. So that would be my answer to that question, Abel. I think Guita is probably the best. He looks the best at the moment. Last question came from Ruslan. He's asking about Aguero. So Aguero looks like a great differential at the moment, or do I prefer Kane and Aubameyang? So Aguero is on my watch list, but I really haven't given him much thought, and the main reason for that is I prefer the Man City midfielders. So I've got Sané, and if I was looking to bring in another City player, I think I'd be bringing in Sterling before I'd bring in Aguero. And as the question suggested, I do prefer Harry Kane and Aubameyang over Aguero at the moment. Gabriel Jesus is knocking around, so there's always the chance that he gets game time to eat into Aguero's minutes. You don't get that with Kane and Aubameyang. You know they're going to play 90 minutes most weeks, which is what we're looking for really in FPL. I owned Aubameyang a couple of weeks ago. He did very well for me. Then I moved Aubameyang out for Harry Kane 2 weeks ago. That's worked out pretty well as well. I think Kane has outscored Aubameyang last 2 game weeks. But I do still really like Aubameyang, and I've even considered reversing that transfer this week, Kane back to Aubameyang, with a view to saving a few bob for the Salah transfer, but unlikely to do that. But I do think Kane and Aubameyang are by far and away the 2 best premium strikers at the moment, and I do like the idea of having at least one of them for team structure. I've talked about moving to 3 budget strikers for the last couple of weeks. I still haven't made the move, but I think this week is the most it's looking most likely that will happen this week, with possibly downgrading Harry Kane for Arnautovic to get Salah back in. But I think anyone who owns Kane, there's a strong case to be made for holding him. Great fixtures. Aubameyang as well. Aubameyang's stats are exceptional. I think there's a big haul coming from Aubameyang soon. I wish I could own all these players, but it's just not possible. But again, that's the answer to the question. I'm not really interested in Aguero because I prefer the City midfielders, and I prefer Kane and Aubameyang as well. Moving on now to Game Week 22 captaincy. So I put up a Twitter poll last night. I included 4 options: Salah, Hazard, Aubameyang and Harry Kane. It got over 5,500 votes, so a good number here to judge what people are thinking about captaincy this week. And I worded the poll as, forget about which players you own, who is the best captaincy option for the game week. I think that's a better way to do that poll. So Salah came out on top with 49%, so almost half of the vote went to Mo Salah. Hazard got 28%, Aubameyang got 14%, and Harry Kane got just 9%. Now, a lot of people obviously were commenting as well about Man City players, the likes of Aguero, Sané, Sterling, who are very good captaincy options this weekend as well. But I never feel confident captaining City assets under Pep Guardiola. Not at the moment, anyway. I just feel Salah and Hazard are better options this week, and even Aubameyang as well. So Kane's got a tough fixture against United, which explains why he only got 9% of the vote. But there's no reason why he can't do damage against a pretty porous United defence. Aubameyang 14%. Aubameyang is playing West Ham, again another porous defence. I wish I owned Aubameyang this week. I think he's an excellent captaincy option if you own him. Hazard and Salah. So I'm planning to bring in Salah. I need to make a decision whether I sell Kane or Hazard. If I sell Harry Kane, that will leave me with a captaincy decision between Salah and Hazard this week. Both excellent options. Hazard plays Newcastle at home and Salah plays Brighton away. Now, I talked already about, I captained Hazard against Southampton. It was very, very frustrating. We know Hazard is very hot and cold in FPL, and Salah's much more consistent, especially against the non-top 6 teams. If you look back on Salah's season, there's a very clear pattern. He blanks against the top 6, and he more often than not delivers against the non-top 6 sides, whether it be home or away. So I think that makes him the standout captaincy option this week, given his form as well in recent weeks. Brighton are pretty poor defensively. So if and when I bring Salah in, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get him this week. He will be my captain for Game Week 22, and there's a good chance I will just auto-captain Salah for the next 5 weeks. Just not even think about captaincy, just leave it on him for the next 5. Brighton, Palace, Leicester, West Ham and Bournemouth. I can see Salah doing serious damage in those 5 games, so I might just not even think about it and just leave it on him. So that's captaincy covered for Game Week 22. Lots of options, but I do think Salah is the standout this week. Moving on now to my plans for the weekend. I've got 2 free transfers, and I'm probably looking at a -4. So probably looking at making a triple move this week. Bringing Salah in is my number 1 priority. The big question is, do I lose Harry Kane or Eden Hazard to do so? I want to keep Sané. Man City have got 3 good fixtures coming up. They've got Wolves, Huddersfield and Newcastle, so I want to hold on to Leroy Sané for those games. There's talk that Benjamin Mendy will be back before the end of the month, so when that happens, there's a good chance that could affect Sané. So I'm happy to hold on to him for the next 3 and then possibly reassess. It could work out well with Heung-min Son coming back from the Asian Cup. The Sané to Son transfer will probably be a popular one in a couple of weeks' time. So with that in mind, I've jotted down 2 options which I'm mulling over, and I'll be mulling over these probably until Friday night. Both involve selling Alonso. Again, as I mentioned, the big question is whether to sell Kane or Hazard to get Mo Salah. So the first option is to sell Alonso, Pereira and Harry Kane to get Alexander-Arnold, Mo Salah and Marko Arnautovic. So I'll be replacing Kane with Arnie in that one. The other option then is to sell Hazard. So it would be Alonso to Alexander-Arnold. So that's pretty set in stone. I'm going to make that move this week. Hazard would become Salah, and I would ship the injured Danny Ings to Kamara just as a bench option. So with both of these routes I'm considering, it's going to be a power midfield 5, and a move to a 3-5-2 formation. It just depends whether I'm going to have Harry Kane up front or Hazard in midfield. So, I mean, all week I've been kind of set on selling Harry Kane. It's the easiest way to get Salah because he's obviously more expensive than Hazard. But the more I think about it, and captaincy is a big factor in my decision this week, I just don't feel confident in captaining Hazard anymore. So, why should I keep him if I'm not going to captain him? Harry Kane's much easier to captain than Hazard. And Kane does have Fulham away in game week 23, which is a very nice fixture for a possible captain there as well. But again, I'm really, you'll probably get from how I'm speaking, I'm really torn on this. I really don't know which way to go to get Salah back in. Obviously, there's always the option of not getting Salah back in and sticking with Hazard and Kane. But I just feel it doesn't feel right to go without Mo Salah, given his form and given his fixtures. He's playing in the best team in the league at the moment as well. So it's not really one to overthink. Yeah, Mo Salah. I think if we don't have him, we do have to get him back in. So that's I'll be mulling that over probably until Friday. Hazard out or Kane out. So let me know what you think on that one as well, and let me know which option you prefer. I'm always open to some fresh ideas as well. So anything I'm not thinking about, let me know. That wraps up the podcast for Game Week 22. As I mentioned, the eye test pods will return this weekend. I'll do as many of those as I can for the second half of the season. A quick word on Patreon as well before I wrap things up. So I've updated my Patreon page for the new year. There's a lot more detail there now about exactly what I offer on Patreon at the different pledge levels. The link to my Patreon page is in my Twitter bio, so it's pretty easy to find that, and you can just give it a read through and see what you think and see if it's something you're interested in. If you're looking to get an edge over your mini league rivals, if you want to improve your rank, or just simply become a better FPL manager, my Patreon offering is something that you might be interested in. The best time to sign up to any Patreon is early in a month, because you get free access until the first of the next month, so you can essentially try it out for the next couple of weeks. And if you don't find it useful, you can cancel before the 1st of February and you won't be charged a thing. So you get a free trial basically. So I've got a Slack channel. There's about 300 of us there. We discuss FPL 7 days a week. That's where I spent the majority of my time this season, interacting with patrons on my Slack channel. I've got a WhatsApp offering as well. You can talk to me one-to-one about your FPL side. Now, I don't make decisions for patrons, but I do try to help them become better FPL managers and guide them on their way to a good rank this season, and the majority of patrons just want to win their mini league, so that's the aim. I've got a WhatsApp group as well where I post anything important that happens in FPL. I send out a notification via WhatsApp with injuries and things like that. I do live streams every Friday as well for patrons, so if you want to check out one of those live streams, I'll be doing a live stream this Friday night, so you can sign up to Patreon to check that one out. I think that's all I'm left to say. Good luck in game week 22, and I'll be back next Tuesday with episode 24. So thanks for listening, folks, and good luck at the weekend.